Hi, happy Friday, and welcome to the World of Jewelry Making Week with Michaels. I'm going to be teaching you something really kind of different for me for sure, but it's a bead embroidery for garments and accessories. And so this is a really fun way for you to integrate your love of beads and seed beads into different things like garments and maybe tote bags, and just ways to like add a little embellishment and a little flair to your wardrobe. So this is a project that has a lot of steps, and some of them we can do together here on the mat today, and others you're going to want to bring in a sewing machine, things like ironing boards. And so it is really cool that next month is the sewing month at Michael's. So for September, sewing month is perfect timing. So maybe you make this project with me today, and then for September, you learn how to assemble it. Now, in my instructions in the handout, I do walk through how I assembled it and how I put it onto the back of a jean jacket. So those instructions are there for you to check out. But if you're looking for a more in-depth dive on like using a sewing machine, setting it up, getting fabric through it, and doing the stitching, I bet you that you can find that content in September. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I have going so far on the mat, and I'll give you another look at the project. So I've got a bunch of items here. Let me go ahead and just move my camera so you can see what I've got going here on my mat. And I've got it at kind of a high up view. Thanks, Nicole. At the moment, because I'm going to show you putting the hoop on your fabric, and I want to talk a little bit about the fabric first. And then we'll go into the seed beading. And we're going to do the seed beading with some embroidery floss. And I'm using some larger-ish needles, and I have tested these. They fit the seed beads that I'm using, 8/0 Czech, and the size 3 Bugles. So these are great needles for working with your embroidery floss and your seed beads, and I'll get you through all that when we get to that spot. But just to kick things off, I want to talk about how I got to the fabric selection and setting up the fabric for my design. So just really quick, let me grab the jean jacket. So the finished jacket is here. And the way it looks is I kind of had to think about it in advance. I had to think, well, how do I want to center this item? How do I want the fabric to like lay out? I chose my pattern, I got the pattern lined up, and then I measured, and I decided that I'd like to do a back panel because I had enough fabric. And then I just picked my favorite flower and made it pop out from the rest of the fabric. And so that's the whole like premise for how I did this. And the assembly of it was basically just I took a zipper foot and I did the corners by folding them in and attached it. I made sure everything was pressed after doing my stitching stage. And so I wouldn't say it's like super beginner friendly, only because you're working with something thick like this. But that said, I wouldn't say it was super advanced either. It's pretty right there in the middle. And then again, that is described, it's described in the handout, all the steps for how I did that. But going back to step one, how I did the fabric was there is a layer of fusible interfacing ironed onto the back of the fabric, and I left the edges so you could see the difference. And so the fusible interfacing, it really does give you a little security when it comes to a couple of things. The best part is that you're not going to get any puckering when you're doing your stitching. With bead embroidery, sometimes that would happen to me when I was really new and I was trying it out. I would get little, bunches in the fabric. So this helps with that. And then it also makes it stronger for the garment. And then another thing, a little added bonus, is your knots. When you're bringing the embroidery floss up for the first time, the little knots are a lot less likely to pull through the fabric. So lots of great reasons to do that. It's super easy to do. You buy the fusible, and let me show you it really quick if I've got. It comes in a bunch of different formats. Like I think the one I put in your handout was a little smaller because you just don't need as much of it for this particular project. So I think the one I put in the handout is sold in a bag hanging in the sewing section, but they also sell it by the bolt. So you can buy the bolts of it. And it just looks like that, and it has these little kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's fun to feel it. It's like little snowballs on it, right? And when you iron it, it goes completely flat. That's like the adhesive. So I highly recommend doing that. So that's step one. And then I've got a really large piece of fabric here because I wanted to be 100% sure I could get enough margin around whichever flower I choose to work with. So that was my next goal. And that does involve planning with your end item that you're going to be putting it on. So this is going to differ for you based on what you're working with. But for me, I was going for something that had about the width here that I'm showing. So I basically measured the jacket. And then I measured that I had about 14 inches around my flower or so. Give yourself an extra, I would say give yourself an extra 2 inches margin around whatever it is you think you're going to stitch it onto that you need, just so you have that extra fabric. So that when you're doing your stitching and you're folding things over, it helps with corners. Just, an extra 2-inch margin can't hurt. All right, so the fun part. This is also in the handout. This is one of those little hoops. And I really liked this hoop, but there's other kinds. You can also use like the desktop ones. Those are really cool if you're doing really big design. This one worked for me. And what I did is I just kind of centered my flower. And after I did the centering, then I went and trimmed my sides. But you could also trim your sides first. I just kind of did it that way just to make sure that I still had my, I guess I was kind of worried that it wouldn't stay centered. So, but I think it's actually okay to do one or the other first. All right. So what I'm going to do here, and this is going to be a little difficult to show. I apologize for how unwieldy. Maybe I will cut the fabric first just so you can see that, but a little easier. Yeah, maybe that does make sense. But again, you can do that in either order. So when I'm not on camera, the way I cut my fabric's a little different than what I'm going to show you right now. I use one of those little rotary wheels, and I use a quilter's, like a long, if I have it, let me show you really quick. I'm going to grab it. I use one of these. So I'm not going to do that today because I don't have my board set up for it, but I use one of these with a rotary to get a straighter edge. So just if you're a sewer, you know what I'm talking about, and you probably already have that. If not, don't worry about it. But I'm going to give myself lots of margin here. Super amounts of margin. And I'm going to lose one of my flowers on the side, but that's okay. I just want you guys to be able to see the sides of what I'm doing. Okay, here's one. And save all those scraps because they can all become something super neat later. They can become smaller accessory embellishers. Okay. So I think that's going to be pretty good. So now you can see what I'm doing with the hoop. So the white part, if you're using the same one as me, you want to put that under. And then you want to take and this is like a cool little stretchy hoop, and then just kind of press it down around the sides. And it'll be really, really, really tight fit. And I struggle with it a little bit, so bear with me. Sometimes I have to take it off if I get any puckers. And just use your arms as your tools. I feel like every time you get one side done, the other side comes loose. But there we go. All right, have any of these? There we go. All right, so I kind of wish this one was a little tighter at the bottom, but I think this is going to work. If you have to try that a few times, don't feel bad. It took me like 3 tries when I first tried it. And it's not 100% perfect still. I think I might even want to just fumble with it a little more here at the bottom. There we go. It takes a little bit of strength. So I'm actually using some arm muscle here. If you have one of the ones that rolls, those can be really good too. But the cool thing about this one is it's portable and I could carry it around. All right, let's stand up. There we go. Okay. Maybe I should have left it the way it was. Here we go. Okay, that one's good. I like that side. Woohoo! Okay, I'm happier with that. I just didn't want any looseness, and I had a little loose spot at the bottom. So don't feel bad if you fumble with it, because I'm fumbling with it too. Okay, so that part is good. Pretty happy with how that's set up. Just do some pull in there. Okay. What do you think? Nice centered. So what I did for my design, now the fun part can start. The fumbly part is over. So we can choose our colors, our seed beads, and our thread. And this is where it gets fun. I'm going to lower my camera now. Just give me just 1 sec here. So you can get a little better view of what I'm doing. So what I did on the finished design is I took the features in my fabric and I decided to highlight them with my beads. I started with some Bugles and some size 8 seed beads. And what I did was I worked the little dot patterns. See how this cute little dots on there? I worked those with some gold beads. And then I took the Bugles and I did a trace of these all the way around. And that demonstrates both of the stitches that you can use to do this entire thing. And those stitches are highlighted if you need to see a visual of them. I did a few illustrations. This is just adding individual beads. But this method really speeds things up. You can add beads in a chain and then just come down. And you can go up with the thread on the way back. And so this is kind of like a, I don't know if you've ever seen a two needle method used for bead embroidery. This is similar to that, but it's one needle version of it. So you can take the thread and just kind of do your stringing and get it laid out where you want it. Kind of got to see if it's on a curve like this, you got to make sure it's got a room to do the curve. Bring your needle down and then you come back up and you capture the thread in between each of those beads on the way back. It really speeds things up. I like that method a lot. And so that's what I'm going to demo here for these. And so let me get some gold thread going. So one thing, if you're a seed beater like me, like a regular bead weaving kind of seed beater, you're going to feel like you need to cut more thread because that's what we do with seed beading. We cut wingspans of thread. I had to train myself to not do that with bead embroidery. You want to work with a strand that's a little shorter. So this was my comfortable length here. Let me just measure it for you. What I found was I tried to keep it under about 20 inches. And keep in mind, some of that will be folded over. So if you can get your floss to under 20 inches, it's going to save you from knots, unwanted knots. So let's measure 20 inches of this thread really quick. Here we go. And what I found is it's kind of just like four unrolls on the little bundle, the way it comes. So that's gonna move in. Okay. So I'm working, when I did my stitching, I'm only gonna work with 3 strands. And embroidery floss has 6 strands in it, the kind that I'm using. Let me show you one that doesn't have its tag taken off. Hang on a sec. It's another pretty color. But all of the ones that I'm using are in the handout. What you're looking at is ones that have 6 strands inside. Hopefully that's coming over really nicely and clear. Right about there looks better. Okay. You know what I might do? I'm going to move the hoop for just a sec. Let's see if that helps. Yeah, that seems a little better. Okay, let's do it without the hoop for a second. So we need to separate. Let's separate 3. And I get it started, but I don't keep going all the way. I'll just take one side when it starts doing that on me. And then just do the pull trick to separate it. Because this is a really easy way to get a knot. There we go. And that's another reason to keep it a little shorter than you otherwise would with your bead weaving lengths, because the bead weaving lengths that we're tending to work with, 65, 70 inches, it's just a little too unwieldy with the floss. So you end up adding thread, but the other thing I noticed is you don't have to be consuming it as quickly because the designs are pretty small, at least in the case of the one that I had. Oh, and so these are for sale in Michael's. These are little cardboard inserts. They're right there in the place where you buy the skeins, and you can just save your other half. And so bead embroidery artists, these are your go-to. You guys already know this, but for me, this was like I use this in bead weaving too. I save my, like for example, I save my wildfire on it too. So these come in handy. These are good to have around. Okay, so I'm gonna use a needle, and let me show you the needles really quick. Embroidery needles. I think I can't remember if I showed them in the beginning. I think I did. But I'm gonna go ahead and there's different sizes in there. Get the floss through it. And then just fold over maybe about that much of it. And you can always expand that out later if you need to. So let's do a little knot at the end. So what I do is just a really simple, bring the thread under, and then just over and through, and pull it just a little bit. And then take this strand and feed it through the loop one more time. And then just pull that down. So you're getting kind of like a little snake knot, maybe? No, more like a barrel knot, I would say. And I found that that was just fine for my reinforced interfaced fabric. It didn't pull through, but if you needed to do it again, you can. If you're using something a little wider, it's not super tricky to center on your other knot, but I do the same again. And then just try to keep it all together. So there's 2 if you needed to, but I think 1's okay. All right, and now the fun part, now the easy part, actually. Making this beautiful and making it pop. So let's start with our 8OC beads. And again, what I did was, I don't know if I showed everything yet. I planned my colors based on what's in my design. So I went with, the cool thing about Bugles is the Bugles will speed it up for you as far as like how long it takes to stitch it. I decided to do green around that. I have some pops of green because this fabric has little green pops in it. I have a bunch of red to do these jumps here, and then I have red for the red dots, and I have a lot of blue. And in one case, I just really wanted to add blue, but there weren't any, like these are gold, red, green. So what I did is I accented the in-betweens with blue, and that made it look really cool. It gave it a different dimension. Let me bring it over one more time and show you. So this was, I enjoyed doing this. And then I added things that weren't in the design too. So you see, I just accented the in-between spots so I could bring in blue. So I really wanted that to be part of my design. And then I use these as little dots. Each of these is individually done to look like the in and out of a flower, like a scallop. And I used a mix so I could take the pattern and like kind of make the pattern part of it. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we're gonna do. And I went a little crazy on the leaves. Those are optional if you want to just try making. Those are just another string method. string and backstitch, I guess I could call it. You know, I didn't check. It probably has a name, but it was something that occurred naturally to me to just do. So I don't know if it's a thing or not. I'm self-taught, so. All right, so I'm just gonna bring my needle up from the back and I'm gonna start with one of my little dots. And let's just embellish that. And you can do these in any order you like. There's no rules. So bringing that bead down and this jumping right back down through the little dot there. Another seed bead. This is so fun and meditative that I might forget I'm live and just start stitching. So if that happens, just wake me up. Let me know that I'm still on camera. It's really fun, really enjoyable. And I also think it's really easy too. If you get this set up so that it's nice and, you know, flat, then all your stitching is just gonna look so pretty. So you could call this lazy girl's bead embroidery, but pretty much what I did. So from here, I'm gonna take the liberty of adding one that's not quite on the pattern because I just liked it. I'll just pick a spot. And if you look around in the fabric section, oh my gosh, there's so much inspiration. I have a few fabrics behind me I'll show you at the end that were part of my where I was thinking about using, and I'll show you the ideas I have for those. I just haven't done yet. But so there in a nutshell is how to do those dots. Now I'm going to show the chain next, and then let me show you the back as well. So here on the back, I've just got that pretty little zip. The tension that I'm using is pretty medium. It's not super, super tight. It's just enough, right? It's kind of like an in-between. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down to, you can almost see it through this little, we're going to do our first little strung part. So I'm just going to jump up right through, right about there. And pull that down. Okay. So now I'm right where I want to be here to do the first little jump. Let me turn you guys up a little higher here. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to add bugles now. And let's see. I started with a seed bead. And then I did bugle, seed bead, bugle, seed bead. And what I did is I just strung it along, just like this. And I'm looking for connecting right over here. So super, super easy. And what, you know, when I first started this project, I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be, you know, there's projects that you do where you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take a really long time and it's going to be fun at first. And then I'm going to be like, I need to be done. I did not find that that was my experience with this one. I was like, hang on, I love this. And I had to stop myself from keeping going because I was just going to keep going on it and just cover the whole thing. I had originally envisioned a very simple design, and then the leaf happened and all this other stuff because I was enjoying myself. So I think you will too. All right, and so when you get to the end, if you have room for another seed bead, put it on. If you feel like it's going to detract from your design, you can leave it off because this is totally freestyle. Let me hold this up really quick. See, I'm looking at it right now and there's a curve. And I'm just covering up the curve and knowing that I have all the beads I need to make that little road covered up. So I'm going to put that needle right down in between. And yeah, thanks, Millie. Yeah, the embroidery thread really does. Because you see it. You see it next to the seed bead. I'll get it really close so you can see. And so I'm going to put the needle down basically right here. And it's okay to move it. And what's going to happen when I do that and I pull this through is the curve isn't going to happen right away like we had it. It's going to do that to us, and that's okay. Just kind of push it back in that direction so you can know where to bring your needle up. We're going to bring our needle up right in front of that first size 8 seed bead. Oh, hey, Sharon. No, don't worry. You're not late. We're just getting started with the beading. You just missed me fumbling with the hoop. Took me a minute, but we got it. And my needle does come off a lot. Sorry, guys. I'm going to put my needle back on. Okay. Gotta moisten the end to get that to go through. There we go. It just took a minute there. Okay, so let's bring our needle up right about there, just so we can lock that down. And then what I'm going to do is lay the thread across and go under the beadwork. And I'm going to put the needle right back down, just pretty much adjacent to where I exited by a very small amount. I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. So it's going, let's see if you can see under the beads right there. It's going down right next to it. Okay. And I'm going to help it stay in front of my 8/0 seed bead. And then just pull that down like that. And I'm going to come up again, just a few feet away. And by feet, I mean like tiny little, that's probably 1.4 millimeters away or so, in front of the next bugle. And same thing, I'm going to jump over the bead and head down. And each time you do this, you'll need to help it a little bit. Or sometimes it'll do it for you where it just really nicely pops, but other times you have to help that thread go where you want it to go. And that looks like it's going to work for me for the next one. And what I'm doing right now, guys, is I'm holding this like kind of up almost to just below my shoulder. That's another reason why I like this hoop, even though it was hard for me to put the fabric in initially, maybe. The way that I'm holding the hoop right now is really nice. So just, I wanted to mention that. It's ergonomic, I guess I could say. Just jumping over there. Oh, here's one where I had to help it a little bit. Okay, let's look and see. I think that's going to work. Pretty forgiving. Here we go. That'll work. Here's what I'm going to have to help a little bit. There we go. So pretty easy. And I've still got a really good amount of thread left. I'm going to trim the end of my thread because I pulled my needle out again. So let's do that. There ends up being just little hairs coming off the end that make it hard to get the needle through. So if you trim it right before you do your needle, that'll help you. And at some point, if I really get like more skilled at this, I might brave up and do a little longer thread cuts. But right now I still feel pretty safe doing a shorter strand, even if it does make it a little unwieldy. All right, and so from here, I just want to make sure I'm in the right spot. Take a look here in the front. I think I want to be over just a smidge more. Oh, that one. All right, almost to the other side. Now you can skip if you feel like it's really doing a good job. You can always skip one. Meaning you probably don't have to do both in front of and behind the 8-0. That's just kind of optional. There we go. All right, last one. I'm going to be a little picky about where I get this one. There we go. And this will make that 8-0 seed bead sit sideways, which is nice. All right. So that's the chain stitch method. And you know what? I'm naming it. I'm naming it something without actually knowing the name. That's just what I called it. Other names I thought of was like kind of two needle, but not two needle. If it has a name and you guys know the name, let me know. Drop that in the chat. But I think this is by far is the fastest way to cover your, your work that I know of. So let's do some other fun stuff. Maybe we could change colors. I still have a lot of working thread left. So obviously what I would do is I would keep embellishing. Oh, Lisa says it looks like couching. Okay. Yeah, I'll look that up after this. It's interesting. I wonder how many of these are just kind of naturally occurring ideas because they really just make sense for how to do it. I bet you I could get at least one more, maybe two with the thread that I've got here. So I'm going to keep this thread handy. And let's go ahead and bring on another colorway. So I already have ready to go a red. And I'm going to show the knot again really quick. And let's go ahead and bring that up. I stopped with just one there. And let's do the part that embellishes these. So that was really fun. And I did that mostly just kind of exclusively with bugle. So I just picked a spot. And let's get the ruby bugles now. I just dumped out a lot of them over here on the mat, guys. Tons of them. Okay. Let's string that one on. I'm just going to bring this down. And what I was going for when I did my bugle embellishment was it was just kind of a color pop. So I didn't try to cover the entire thing. I just made it an accent. And then I kind of alternated the positions so that they kind of aren't in a straight, they aren't in a straight line like this. They're just kind of, they wave around a little bit. That was just an artistic choice that I wanted to do. Oh, and question about the interfacing. Yep, it's in the handout. Let me grab it really quick to show you. But I wanted to say that the kind of interfacing you use can be any. Like it's not set in stone for you. You can use apparel, and I believe what I've got here is a Pellon apparel. There's hot fuse, there's all kinds. I think it's forgiving for which one you want to use for this application. Since it's at least in my case, going on the back of a very strong fabric, a jean jacket, I can get away with a lot, with as far as like which one I could use. So I actually just use what I had here. I used to do I used to make like skirts and stuff and dresses a long time ago. And so I had a bunch of apparel fuse. And so that is what's probably here. Here's how to do two. So I got one of these on. And I'm going to go, let's see, come up from underneath. And I'm just trying to make sure it stays lined up. There we go. So these are being put on differently than these were, in that I'm not trying to make them touch each other. I'm actually doing something where they have gaps in between. And I just did that on purpose because I thought it looked cool. But you can do that absolutely anything that you think looks cool. And as soon as I get this done, I was going to show you how I did the curves on the, it's the same process. It was just a little bit more, where I had to think about it a little bit. But this one to me almost looks like a little heart, doesn't it? It's pretty cool. And I'm being selective with my bugles. I'm choosing heights that I think look nice next to each other. That's what I'm doing here, and I'm being a little picky about them. So there's how I did those little pops of embellishment. And let's do those curves next. So I'm going to grab my green thread really quick and we'll cut another strand. So let me set this over here just for a second. And this actually, they got a little mixed up in my box, but it was easier to do when it was new. I let it get tangled. I think I probably should have coiled these immediately when I got them, but I learned. Don't be like me. Okay. And I'm going to eyeball just a good length for me and get the scissors going here. Okay. And here, again, I'm just going to separate the strands. And I've seen a really cool method where they pull from the other side and they just pull it like this. But what I'm struggling with is getting hold of whatever I need to on this end for that to happen. So honestly, I've just been doing it probably the wrong way, but the right way for me, which is very gently without letting it spin, just separating them. And I'm getting away with it because my strands are short, but it's the way to go. And of course, coil that around a card. And then pick a side that has the ends really close together. There we go. So again, I'm working with 3-ply, guys. I've turned it into just 3 strands. And that's what I found worked with my beads. Fold that over. Let's do our knot. Okay, there's 1. And 2. All right, let's do one of those pretty little curves that's on it. So pick this one here. And now I need to get the green bugles. I really like this color. It says green silver lined on it. To me, I see peridot. So I've got those going. Okay, let's pick up one. Pick one that's kind of uniform with the rest. Here we go. And I'm going to slide it down a little bit. And there we go. I'm just picking a spot that is the same height and then using the bugle to tell me what that height needs to be. There we go. I've got something I wouldn't usually have on the back. I've got all my other strands. I didn't cut them yet because I'm going to use them. So you know what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to grab some washi tape. I always keep this handy. And just for this demo, I'm going to take my extra strands over here because they are getting tangled with my new strand. But a problem you won't have is just something that I'm dealing with here. Okay. And so now I'm going to try to come up really close. So this is different than what we were doing here, and so still a little different than this. But I'm going to come up really close to the last one. And the reason I didn't do this as the, I think you said it was called the couching stitch. The reason I didn't do that is I was just not able to really make my curve exactly as I wanted. I had better luck individually stitching them in this case, because this is a really sharp turn. And each one's a little different. And so I gave them a little bit of space so that I felt that it made them look a little rounder when they're all set. Again, just a little closer to them. Let's see, I want this one to be kind of like, yeah, kind of like right there. There we go. And so I'm going to try to find a bugle that's a little shorter. I have one here that's just got a little less height than the others. I'm going to make use of it here, because it's going to be on an angle. Perfect. Okay, right about there. And there we go. There we are. All right. So that one came out really nice. And that's what I did for the jacket. Let me bring the jacket back over. And I'll show you guys some of the other ones, how they looked. And so the only other thing I haven't shown is how I did this little scallopy center here. So we can switch to blue and do that. However, let me just check our time. We're doing really well. And I haven't seen very many questions, but we're rolling pretty good on time. So if you have any, please feel free to ask them. So yeah, let's switch to the blue. So I used the deep sea mix to do the center. And I thought it was really cool looking. And I did pop some accents in there because there's one little spot where you can do that. If you want to, you don't have to. So let's flip this over. And I'm going to just join this one up here with this one. And there we go. Make sure that's nice and tight. Okay, so let's get some blue thread. Where's my blue? Here's my blue. If you're loving these colors, all of these colors are in the how-to handout. I don't need as much of this, so I'm just going to go with about that much. This is a very small little beaded section. Right, there we go. So there's just 3 strands that I'm working with, and got my needle. And let's trim this. Here we go. Almost got it. Sorry about that. Let's try this. Yay, okay. It's a lot of needle threading for one class. And let's do our quick little knot here. Going through the loop once, and then let's go through it one more time. And pull that all the way down. So I'm going to just do at least maybe like half of the starting little center flower. And I want to leave time for questions in case you guys have them about how to do any of the steps before or after stitching, or about the stitching too. And so what I did was, and we're getting into the realm of just artistry here, but I decided to make the colors consistent. And I chose 3, one for the middle. So the little scallop, it does this little around thing. And so I wanted to highlight that. So I used one color for this, one color for the jump here, and one color if there was going to be 2, and then another for the, basically I just stuck with the same dark color for the center. And so from the mix, you have 3 different colors in here. But that said, you can do this any way you like, because I think there's no wrong way to do it. But so I went with that really, really pretty cobalt, and it's like the perfect match to my thread. And if you guys who know me well know that I get excited about stuff like that. It's just so pretty. Little things like that make me happy. But it's literally the exact same color. It's really pretty. So bringing this needle through here. One sec, I've got to move those other strands. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Okay. And then just pick a spot that's a little bit up from that one. I'm gonna go maybe, yeah, right there's good. And then in this mix, there's actually quite a few, different ways you can do this, but I went from that to this shiny iris one. Okay. And then here's the point, and I went with a bright one for the point of it. So there's 2 to choose from. There's this light kind of like matte color, but then there's also this aqua silver line, and that one really pops. So depending on what you're going for, let's go with the silver line. I like that one a lot. So far I'm just kind of making the trip up on one of the little scallops, and then now I'm going to travel back down. Let's see. Grab one of those again. So I think I really only used the couching method for the circle. I'm pretty sure I just did the rest like this, and except for maybe when I was doing the leaves. The leaves I went a little overboard on. And those I may have used kind of combinations of those methods. All right, pull this through. And there's the center. So this one has a smaller little scallop. So I'm going to go right to the silver line for this one and skip adding the iris beads. And then back down to the cobalt. So that is pretty much all you have to do And then it's really up to you if you want to add more beads, you know, you can keep going. As far as what I did, I'll bring the finished sample back over in just a sec. Let's see, actually for this one, I'm going to go with some of these. Why not? And make it look pretty neat. I might turn this one into a tote bag. That's another cool thing about, I don't know if I have any sewers out there, but if you've ever made one of those bags where you definitely do the fusible for the outside part, and then the inside, the lining, you can use any pretty contrasting fabric. And you kind of do that the bucket tote where you stitch it inside out and then leave a little opening and then bring it all through it, fold it down, press it. I love doing that. And it's been so long since I've made one of those. And I think that's what this is going to become when I finish it. So I'm almost done with half my flower. So I'm going to stop here and just double check questions because I think we're getting close to our time. I feel like we did really good though on time. Yeah. Maybe I feel like this over here needs a little something else. I might put another one up there. I don't know. Just playing with it and just making it look really pretty. So it does take a little bit of time to finish, but it's not too bad. I think it took me a couple days to do the jean jacket. Let me bring that back over and show you that. Okay. So there's what we were doing here in the middle. And then here's our starbursts coming out from the sides here. And the curves we were making, we demoed that I now know this is called couching. But it's just where you string it. And you can see where I started getting creative and having fun and adding green beads and just really taking liberties with the colors. So you can just really go crazy. And then the flowers really naturally yielded themselves to more starbursting. And then over here, the leaf, I did use a combination of methods. So I did some single bead adds, and then I did some chaining here, couching here. You can see where that one's even. Okay, and so I'm getting a question about the jacket itself. So yeah, let's talk about that. We've got a few minutes here. So once you're done with creating, you want to get to where you're completely done with your stitching here. And once you've got that and you're really happy with how that is, free it from the hoop. I'm going to keep mine on the hoop because it might be more tough for me to get it back in there and finish mine later, but it's really easy. You just move it. I think you can, if you go back to the beginning of the video when I was putting this on, I did it twice, so I actually took it off. So you can see, you just pop it and it comes right loose. You're going to have suspension indentations all around here that you're going to have to press out really, really well. So use the steaming function on your iron and press that out really good. And then what you want to do is take your jacket, and let me use a scrap piece of fabric to show you this part. I'm going to bring, let's bring this one over. So not stitched on yet. What I did was I actually took some sewing pins and I started with one of the edges. Now this was a little bit more complicated because my jacket does this. I'm exaggerating, but it's narrower here than up at the shoulders. But I think that's probably pretty common with jackets. Not totally sure, but I think that's probably what you'll see. So I did start, I can't remember, I think I started at the top. I just started pinning it. And a lot of times I ended up unpinning it and repinning it. And I did all of the pinning. And I believe I actually took a photograph of that part of the process here. Let me show you. Yeah, okay. And this was something I did on the ironing board itself. Okay, so I took the fabric down, put the jacket on the ironing board, pressed the jacket, put the fabric on top of it, and I started adjusting the position on top of the jacket. So bring this over. I started just laying it over the top, and let me grab this up. This one's a little better. Okay. Just laying it on top, centered my design first, made sure I had my design where I wanted it. And then if I had a lot of extra like this, I would trim some and trim it down, and then start by doing this side. When you know what your corner is going to be, take it off, fold the corner down. You know, you do the fold the corner down and then fold it out method. I did that and I pinned and pinned and pinned all the way around. Then I took it and put it on the sewing machine. I used, I have an edge foot, which is, I use it for zippers too. It's a, I'm using a German machine. It's a FAF, I think. And so it has some feet that probably have proper names, but I use them for what works for me. I don't know. It's just, I'm self-taught. So it's kind of how I roll. But I just ran along it. And when I got to the corners, I would lift up the presser foot, but do that with the needle down position, turn the jacket so I can continue on straight stitching. I used, I believe I used either a 2 or a 3 point stitch. And I was using some of the thread that is recommended for my machine. And so, yeah, it's actually, I mean, it was pretty easy. I didn't have to take it apart or struggle too hard with it. I think the part I fussed with the most, I probably spent 25 minutes fussing with it, was pinning it and getting the pinning perfect. I remember at one point I struggled with a corner because it was the last corner and I needed to take the whole thing off to do the folding. And I believe it was that one. I was struggling with that corner. So, but look, it looks great now. So we're good with it. Yeah, Marguerite, I did. I pinned it with everything turned over. Yeah, I did fold over everything and press it with my iron until I got it exactly kind of like shaped as I wanted. There may be an easier way to do it than the way I did it, which is why I think I'm going to tune in for September sewing month, because I might need a refresher myself. But I mean, I kind of winged it, you know, just to see what would happen if I started stitching and folding. And I have a little bit of sewing experience, so it wasn't like I was starting from scratch, but I'm by no means like considered even, I would say, I'm barely touching intermediate when it comes to sewing skills. So this was doable for me, and I think it'll be doable for everybody. Oh yeah, I saw a comment pop up that that you might start sewing again. Yeah, this got me kind of back into thinking about that too. Like, I'm thinking about tote bags. One of the things I really loved making were zipper totes and zipper like little makeup bags. I make them for my jewelry, like, and I give my jewelry as gifts for people in those little bags. I used to make tons of those. So, oh, and I see a cool comment. I'm missing a comment about the fabric. Let me pop that one up. Yeah, I should add that fabric to the flaps and the pockets on the collar. Yeah, because I have a lot of scraps left over. So we could do that. That would be really cute. And that might be, you know, really fun to do some beading down around, like to highlight. And then I'm curious how I would do the button, but I bet I could figure that out. I do have a button foot that I could use to maybe even put the fabric over it and then just sew. Yeah, I'd have to play with that, but I bet I could figure that out. And around the neckline. Another cool thing is you can do, I didn't do that here, but what about applique? Oh, and I'm seeing a really cool comment here. So this was going right to where I was with this. So if you don't mind raw edges, you can lay your beaded piece down on the garment and stitch around it, and then trim close after stitching. Yeah, and if you use some fray preventer or even fabric glue on the ends, you wouldn't have to worry about that. Also, I thought about asking, because my mother-in-law made these beautiful quilts for my boys when they were little, and she did applique beading on it. Or sorry, applique quilting, a quilting style, where all these little sea creatures were like traced around. So now she's like, I would say like way past like experienced sewer. She's like a master. And so I was going to ask her for help with something like that later to see like how I can make it on a tote bag, you know? But oh yeah, Susan says she loves the idea of making gift bags. So that's in my wheelhouse of skill level, like to make little zipper pouches. And that's one of the things I think would be so cool to put the beads on, right? Because then you'd have your beads on your little zipper pouch, and how cool would that be? So that's kind of my plan for that one, to become like a little, maybe a larger tote. So yeah, I want to see if I missed any other questions. It looks like, and since you're fabrically attached to the edge, you could use a button. Oh yeah. Yeah, so many great ideas. So you guys, you're going to see me in the sewing classes. I am definitely going to be popping in for those classes in September. So I hope to see you there. And in the meanwhile, thank you so much for being here today with me. And I hope that you will try this project and try out bead embroidery. You won't regret it. It's really fun. And I want to wish you great luck with your projects. All right, have a great rest of your day.